Robert Tilton is raping the most vulnerable segments of our society, the poor, the infirm, the elderly.
The public now knows by the verdict of this jury that's heard all of this evidence that this man has been defrauding people for a long time.
Please don't edit it to pieces and make me look bad again.
You thought he disappeared from the airwaves.
I'm back!
The untold story of how this Dallas demon chaser is getting a second chance to raise millions from your donations.
Robert Tilton was once the most successful televangelist in America.
But unflattering publicity about his fundraising techniques and some legal problems knocked him off the air 5 years ago. But now he's back on TV, and Fox 4's Richard Gray joins us live from the newsroom now with the story. Richard.
Hi, Ashley and Steve. A lot of you thought you'd seen the last of Robert Tilton, that he'd been driven off for good. But the untold story is that Bob beat the rap. He beat all the raps, and he's back.
I am a prophet of prosperity, and I am not ashamed of it.
Robert Tilton.
Once he was the most visible TV evangelist in America, preaching the health and wealth gospel. Make a vow, God will give you what you want. Send money to me.
I look at you and I see money.
And millions poured in every month.
You don't act this stuff. You don't conjure it up, make it up. Ha! It bubbles up.
But with visibility came scrutiny, a series of unflattering exposés followed by investigations and lawsuits.
I'm not a dirty dog. I'm not a thief. I'm not a fraud. I'm not a flake. I'm a born-again son of God.
But by the end of 1993, Bob Tilton was also off the air. The old brother Bob was often over the top. The new version still approaches the peak.
Success in life with Robert Tilton.
The devil's hearing a horrible noise when you call, and he's fleeing.
He's 80% back. I mean, you watch, you know, on a given day, he'll start beating the table and chasing the demons.
I tell you, that's a devil. We're going to hit that devil between the eyes.
I'm going to go to the altar.
Harry Getzloff is a member of the Trinity Foundation, an East Dallas church that monitors TV evangelists.
It's the same stuff. He's doing it again.
I'm not talking about making money your God. I'm talking about, and I'm not talking about serving money. I'm talking about serving God with your money.
This is where Bob Tilton does his broadcasts now, a tiny studio on an almost unfindable back street in Miami Beach, Florida.
The impression in Dallas is that he's vanished from the face of the earth. In fact, he's alive and well and living in the land of second chances, South Florida, and rebuilding his empire. Spent some time with
Sean Rowe is a writer who spent weeks trying to track Tilton and wrote a cover story about it for a Fort Lauderdale newspaper.
At times I would follow him in his car, and I would always lose him. He would lose me. He's trying to keep the lowest profile possible. He's almost invisible.
I don't think anybody in the United States' church could have withstood what that ministry withstood.
Attorney J.C. Joyce says there's an untold story here.
All of this smoke, never was any fire.
Okay, what about that civil fraud judgment in federal court? $1.5 million in damages, overturned by an appeals court.
Threw it out in total. Not a dime was paid.
What about all those investigations? The Texas Attorney General, the FBI, postal inspectors, the IRS.
Clean bill of health. Nothing wrong, not a dime misspent.
The clip at the end of part 2 is Mikey's favorite. Had to put that in there.
You know, if that guy wasn't such a snake oil salesman, I actually might like him. He's pretty damn hilarious.
You do like him.
He reminds me a little bit of me, doesn't he, at times?
Drama queen.
Only I'm not begging for millions of dollars. That's a big difference.
Yeah. Now, another reason that we showed some of these clips at the beginning was the problems that Tilton was facing back, you know.
Yeah, because he was a 501c3. Now, you'll want to remember the name Dan Morales and J.C. Joyce, his attorney. What the news clip did not show you was some of the things that happened that were not readily made public knowledge.
Well, they don't want people to know, you know, why he got off scot-free.
Exactly. Peter Kershaw tells you why he got off.
You figured it out.
Yes. But before I read what he has to write here, in this same section, he's got a section entitled Reclaiming Our Rights. And he's got a quotation from Samuel Adams, The Rights of the Colonists, November 20th, 1772, in the Annals of America, Volume 2, page 218. The right to freedom being the gift of God Almighty. It is not in the power of man to alienate this gift and voluntarily become a slave. These may be best understood by reading and carefully studying the Institutes of the great lawgiver and head of the Christian Church, which are to be found clearly written and promulgated in the New Testament. This Bible was so important to the founding fathers of the United States of America that men like Samuel Adams made statements so profound as this: the right to freedom being the gift of God Almighty, it is not in the power of man to alienate this gift voluntarily and become a slave.
Obviously, they liked his quote so much they named a beer after him.
That's right. I think I'd have done the same thing. So, moving on, how did Tilton get out of this financial problem in dealing with the IRS? He reclaimed his right. Now, let me show you how that was done, because I'm going to be reading this right from the book. And it's a pretty lengthy read. For a church, reclaiming rights begins with disincorporation. To illustrate how formidable a barrier is created by the First Amendment against the government, and that incorporation is the nexus of state control, we will use an illustration which includes a person whose occupation makes many people's skins crawl, a televangelist. While one can cite examples of horrible television preachers, nevertheless, the ranks of televangelists are overwhelmed by hucksters, heretics, and men who make a mockery of biblical Christianity.
But they don't make this stuff up.
But that's right. These guys even watch midgets grow. If anyone is vulnerable to litigation or government attack, surely it is the televangelist. And that's why Tilton found himself in the position he was in. On November 21st, 1991, ABC's program Primetime Live ran a so-called piece of television journalism about Word of Faith Ministries and its founder, Robert Tilton. Just prior to running the program, ABC shared its content with the Texas State Attorney General's office, which subsequently opened an investigation under the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act. Within several days thereafter, the ABC program was aired. Dan Morales, you saw the picture, you saw him named in this newsreel. Dan Morales, the Texas Attorney General, appeared on various news programs himself, making numerous scurrilous and defamatory statements based solely on what he had been shown of the ABC program, not upon any facts or evidence his office had uncovered. Tilton sued Morales in federal district court and established the fact that there had never been even one complaint filed in his office against Word of Faith. In federal court, the judge stated that Morales had dishonored his office and all citizens of Texas. Tilton walked out of court with 5 permanent injunctions against the Attorney General, a most remarkable feat, if not a precedent. But it didn't end there. However, during the trial, the judge also ruled that the state attorney general does have general superintending control over all corporations. Morales promptly opened a new investigation using the jurisdiction granted him under the Texas Corporations Act by virtue of the fact that Word of Faith was a Texas corporation. See, New York State Attorney General, Watchtower Bible Tract Society Incorporated. New York State Attorney General does have jurisdiction over the Watchtower. And I digress. Tilton's attorney, J.C. Joyce, again, who you've seen in this news ad, this newsreel, advised that his client established an unlicensed church and transfer all the assets of the incorporated church to it. Tilton approved and Joyce complied. Dissolving Word of Faith, Inc., Morales subsequently served Word of Faith, Inc. with subpoenas to produce all corporate records. The problem for Morales was that the corporation no longer existed and he thereby lost jurisdiction. This case sets a precedent which substantiates this author's assertion that without the corporate status, the government lacks the jurisdiction to meddle in church affairs.
Well, as we've seen further in the clip, it wasn't in this part that we used, but in watching the full clip on YouTube, Tilton actually moved to Florida.
Yeah.
So he just got out of Texas completely.
And reestablished a ministry, an unincorporated ministry. So he's back! In a conversation with this author, J.C. Joyce said, "This one wasn't just about shutting down some little mom-pop operation, but we were shutting down a corporation that had $60 million worth of assets and $60 million worth of revenues coming in every year. Regardless of one's personal opinions about televangelists, this was a landmark case, and there is much to be learned from it. Few attorneys have, however, demonstrated such tactical brilliance and common sense as was exhibited in the Tilton case. J.C. Joyce is one of those rare attorneys, well, I don't know about that.
Watchtower has a lot of them.
Yeah, it's one of those rare attorneys toward whom this author has good cause to be complimentary. But then, Joyce happens to be one of those rare attorneys who says it's stupid to incorporate a church. Now, I was going to save what I'm about to say right now to the end, but the fact that I've read this about Tilton and how he escaped all of this trouble with the Texas State Attorney General and with the IRS is that he simply dissolved the corporation. The Texas State Attorney lost jurisdiction because the corporation no longer exists. Now, we all know as activists against the Watchtower Bible Tract Society, the Watchtower Bible Tract Society is facing a lot of issues right now, and one big one is the child sexual abuse. We've all seen them sitting in their courts of the Australian Royal Commission. We know that they've lost their charitable status in the UK, and there's some other things going on. Watchtower can simply walk away from this just by unincorporating and dissolving everything that has to do... Wait a minute. Watchtower can't do that because the minute you unincorporate, you kill your God, Jehovah. Think about that, Watchtower. Think about what I just said. If you unincorporate to escape what's coming to you, you have to kill Jehovah and everything.
With the name Jehovah's Witnesses.
With the name Jehovah's Witnesses, the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, because you just don't unincorporate the Watchtower Bible Tract Society, knuckleheads. You incorporate the whole damn bushel of nonsense that you've incorporated. Maybe even the people's pulpit along the way. You've got to get rid of it all if you don't want to be touched by any state attorney general or even the IRS. And we all know, now that I've read this, I know the IRS has been breathing down your neck because it dawned on me why you changed the baptismal questions back in 1985. And we're going to
So
get
what
to that.
happened?
What happened? By applying for and receiving a 501c3 license, a church converts a God-given right into a government-granted benefit. Since an exemption is, for a church, a dramatically inferior legal status, it may be modified or revoked by the government. Why should a church want it? What if, at some time in the future, Congress elects to eliminate certain exemptions? Your 501c3 church is still going to be euphemistically called tax exempt. It's just not exempt from all taxes. Congress has already done just that and will no doubt do it again. In 1984,
So that would be like almost a year before they changed the baptism questions?
yes, get this. In 1984, 501c churches were required to reclassify all church workers and ministers. Let me read that again. In 1984, 501c3 churches were required to reclassify all church workers and ministers, including those that are going from door to door voluntarily, as employees and start paying Social Security taxes. Huh? How come we never found that out? Yeah, how come we never found that out back in 1984, Watchtower? Why didn't you put that in a Watchtower article? Why didn't you put that in a KM to tell us that you should have been paying Social Security taxes on all those hours we were volunteering for you? Because we were no longer classified as volunteer workers, but classified as employees.
Oh, but you forget, they came out with that KM that said that Jehovah's Witness ministers do not represent the Watchtower Bible Tract.
That's how they screwed us over. We got hosed, Kimmy. We got hosed.
But they still say ministers are classified as employees.
Well, that's what I'm going to go on to here in just a minute.
Well, do you want me to interrupt you?
No, please do. Please do.
Okay. The organization book. Now, only Jehovah's Witnesses should have this. Should. Page 78. Oh, and this is the 2005 edition. Page 78. First full paragraph at the top. Our heartfelt appreciation has moved us to dedicate ourselves to Jehovah and to symbolize that by baptism in water. Baptism constitutes our ordination as ministers. So we're ordained as ministers at baptism.
The church corporation, just like any other corporation, has employees, a term of corporate origin, not ministers of God and fellow laborers in the gospel of Christ. Do I need to read that again?
No, I think they heard you.
So no matter what Watchtower writes, because they are a 501c3, you are not ministers of God. You are corporate employees. As such, they are now liable not only for Social Security contributions, but all other employee taxes and withholdings, including income taxes, unemployment taxes, and workman's comp. You know, I got to stop and think for a minute. I wonder now that I have read this, if the real reason why Watchtower's laying off everybody is because somebody's pressing this issue.
Could be.
That they are employees and they should be paying Social Security contributions, unemployment, and workman's comp. I wonder if somebody is pressing this.
Well, Marcus Vaughn, since you are an actual Bethel worker, and some of you others that were actual Bethel workers, like Eric Struggle and some of those others.
You were an employee.
You were an employee. Now, you should be getting unemployment.
Watchtower, do you see that noose around your neck? The IRS's hand is right on that trip mechanism that's going to make you fall and snap your neck. This is how ignorant, this is how ignorant Jehovah God is. Remember, he's directing this organization. All of these spiritual blessings are coming from Almighty God. Yeah, right. You guys ain't got nothing. If the state attorney generals and the IRS can reclassify volunteer service as laborers now, workers.
Well, that just proves that Almighty God has nothing to do with their organization.
He's got nothing. Otherwise, he would be protecting you.
What's interesting is since we have friends who are Mormons, they have told us that that is why even the ones that clean their temples and I forget the other name that they call, you know, their congregations and stuff, but their workers that even clean the toilets at their temples are paid.
They get paid a wage. Absolutely. The Mormon Church is in compliance with these new laws that were passed in 1984, and Watchtower is not. Okay, that brings up another interesting point, that if we decide to get somebody that knows how to begin the litigation with these laws that were passed in 1984, and if statutes of limitations can be readjusted now that Watchtower has been exposed from hiding it from us what our legal rights were. There again, that becomes deceit, that becomes fraud, that becomes everything that I read earlier from Black's Law Dictionary about Watchtower. And the thing is even if Watchtower right now decides to go and clean office and throw away all of those monthly reports that were saved by the circuit overseer and everything else, even if they throw those away, Watchtower, I still got you by the short hairs. You know why? Because your Kingdom Ministries for all that time period published the average hours per publisher. So even if you throw away all those time slips, we can use those KMs and show what the average monthly hour. And if you've got 5 million Jehovah's Witnesses that were preaching in 1894 up to now, you average out by the hours, average hours per month, and you guys are going to be paying a hefty amount of money to Social Security taxes, unemployment, workman's comp, and everything else.
Well, it's a real simple thing because we have the yearbooks that have the hours spent in the preaching work every year. And all we have to do is prove from what year to what year that we were Jehovah's Witnesses preaching, and just take that year's total hours and average it out to every single witness, every single publisher, and that's how much they would have to pay.
We got them. I mean, we just have to learn how to begin the litigation on this. Okay, I'm going on. Because of the Social Security Reform Act, that which the 50C3 church found advantageous in 1983 suddenly became most disadvantageous in 1984. A rather Orwellian year.
Yeah, because that was the name of the book, too.
Yes, 1984. This egregious legislation should have unleashed a torrent of outrage against Congress and against President Reagan, who signed it, for thousands of churches all across America. Instead, there was barely a peep. Congress had little cause for concern over a potential backlash, as most churches had long before been hushed by the 501c3. Here's the quandary 501c3 religious organizations face. How are 501c3 churches to petition and lobby Congress regarding changes in the tax code which adversely affect them, when the terms and conditions of the 501c3 preclude their doing so? How are they capable of effectively governing and planning church affairs when they have agreed in advance to comply with all future tax laws that Congress will hand down without even having the vaguest notion of how those statutes will impact their churches? And then Peter Kershaw quotes Proverbs 18:13. He who answers a matter before he hears, to him it is folly and shame. Churches that retain their sovereignty and non-taxable legal status had no such problem to contend with. because statutes like the Social Security Reform Act, which specifically targeted 501c3s, don't apply to free churches. Free churches have ministries and ministry workers, not employees. Wow. That was very, very loaded, wasn't it? Very, very loaded.
A lot in there.
Yes, that's why I said this is the key to killing Watchtower. Go after the 501c3. Now, how can we also begin to do this? Well, in the next subheading, the religion of public policy. In order to qualify, now we Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-members, we all are very familiar with that word. You know, if you want to qualify to pass mics, well, you got to be getting national average. If you want to qualify to be, a ministerial servant or an elder, you have to be above national. You have to qualify for this, and you have to qualify for that. Watchtower is built on nothing but a foundation of qualifying bullshit. So you have to qualify as a 501c3. The organization must first meet the criteria of having a charitable purpose. Now, we all know that as Jehovah's Witnesses, we were fed that our public ministry fits the description of charitable purpose. And for us Jehovah's Witnesses, we were happy with that because we never thought to challenge.
Well, it's a life-saving work, going out pounding on doors early in the morning.
That's right. We never thought to challenge the legal description of charitable purpose. So here's that legal description according to Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, and this is also in my 5th edition. Term as used for purpose of tax exemption. Okay, this is under charitable purpose. Purpose of tax exemption has as its common element the accomplishment of objectives which are beneficial to community or area, and usually recognized charitable purposes not otherwise limited by statute are generally classified as relief of poverty. How does even a local Kingdom Hall in Timbuktu, New Mexico, how do they do anything to relieve poverty? Their solution is study the Bible with us, become a Jehovah's Witness, make it into the new system, and poverty's done forever. Well, see, Watchtower, there's another term after this that's also a qualifier, but I will get there. Relief of poverty, advancement of education. What? Advancement of education?
Well, see, they consider teaching someone the Bible an education, or teaching them to learn how to read and write. Because if you remember, back in the 80s, they started the program to teach people how to read and write.
But in a court of law, could we not argue that their mindset is that they're against public education because they discourage college? See, there's something that we can argue. Precedences need to be set, don't they, Watchtower? See, things need to be reclassified. Advancement of religion. Well, we know Watchtower does advance religion. Well, wait a minute. They only advance their own religion. If you were a Catholic back in the day, then Rutherford would have protested your Catholic Church on a Sunday morning when your thus Rutherford going before the... So they were not advancing religion, were they?
They were bashing religions.
Protection of health. What about the mental health of all the children that your elders are raping and sexually abusing? What about their mental health? You guys ain't done nothing.
Well, I was going to say
to
the
protect
protection
that.
of health. What about the blood transfusions? You know, how many have died for refusing blood?
Let me go back, Watchtower, just in case you missed this point. In order to qualify as a 501c3, the organization must first meet the criteria of having a charitable purpose. Protection of health. Wow. how does letting your congregants die on the operating table have anything remotely to do with the protection of health? See, this is where Jehovah's Witnesses get so lost and so confused, because they don't even understand their own Bible as it relates to the blood issue. I'm going to digress here. Well, no, I'm going to teach Jehovah's Witnesses thing here. Go to your Bible, Leviticus chapter 17. Read verse 14 and tell me how this is really going to apply to be, you know, the whole criteria, the mindset of abstaining from blood. Leviticus 17, 14 through 15. For the soul of every sort of flesh is its blood, by the soul in it. Consequently, I said to the sons of Israel, you must not eat the blood of any sort of flesh, because the soul of every sort of flesh is its blood. Anyone eating it will be cut off. Well, that's pretty self-explanatory, because that's how Jehovah's Witnesses view this whole nonsense today. But they always skip reading over verse 15. And this is where there's an absolute disconnect with Jehovah's Witnesses and the blood doctrine. As for any soul that eats a body already dead or something torn by a wild beast, wait a minute, that would mean it was not properly bled. So the blood law doesn't apply any longer, does it? As for the soul, or just put, as for any human that eats a body already dead or something torn by a wild beast, whether a native or an alien resident, he must in that case wash his garments and bathe in water and be unclean until that evening. And he must be clean. 18. But if he will not wash them and will not bathe his flesh, he must answer for his error. And there is God's ecclesiastical loophole over the whole blood issue. You could eat a dead body that was not properly bled. As long as you bathed yourself that evening, God was not going to hold you accountable for sidestepping his law. And
that would even be roadkill.
That would be roadkill. And this is what Jehovah's Witnesses fail to comprehend, because they're ignorant. They're absolutely ignorant. Okay, I'm going on. Protection of health. Governmental or municipal purposes and other varied purposes and accomplishment of which is beneficial to the community. When you have a program that helps to relieve poverty in your local community, that is a benefit. When is the last time any one of us ex-witnesses or even current Jehovah's Witnesses has ever seen a congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, local and or Watchtower's headquarters, put on some sort of food drive to relieve poverty or hunger in the community?
Or have a food bank?
Never. Spell that one out, Watchtower. Now, the problem with the 501c3 is it really comes down to public policy. Government licensed charitable organizations are subject to regulation under what is termed public policy. This is because an incorporated tax-exempt organization is that law terms are quasi-public corporation. Did I read that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I go back to what I stated in part 2. If you have a Jehovah's Witness elder who comes out and publicly says he's gay, if he's deleted, he can sue the Watchtown Bible Tract Society, because public policy dictates that you can be a minister and still be openly gay. Public policy dictates that you can be a female minister. So if Watchtower is not compliant to public policy as it's termed in the 501c3,
it's discrimination.
It's discrimination. You have got your head in that noose, Watchtower. Okay, Black's Law Dictionary, public policy, community common sense and common conscience. My conscience allows me to permit a woman to get on the pulpit and preach. And that's the way the conscience of the community is turning these days, isn't it, Watchtower?
But you heard Jeffrey Jackson's testimony.
It's never
before
going to happen.
Australian Royal Commission that they have to strictly follow the Bible.
Yeah. Not if they're a 501c3, they can't. Extended and applied throughout the state of matters of public morals, health, safety, welfare, and the like. It is that general and well settled public opinion relating to man's plane. Palpable, what's that word?
Palpable.
Palpable duty.
It's been a long day.
Yes. Papal. It's the root word is papal. Palpable duty to his fellow man, having due regard to all circumstances of each particular relation and situation. Public policy, being that it is based upon public opinion, is anything but well settled. It is thoroughly humanistic and an accurate portrayal of the modernist philosophy of situational ethics. The above definition is fraught with problems for the Christian. For example, while we should all aspire to the use of common sense, just what is common sense? As Christians, our conscience is not derived from the socialist doctrine of common conscience, but from the divine revelation of God's written word and in the convicting work of His Holy Spirit. Christians will often find their consciences at odds with that of their community. Wow. I really don't need to say any more or read any more, because Watchtower, I have read and said it enough to let everybody in the XJW community know that if you are a 501c3 corporation, you have the proverbial noose around your neck and you have no choice but to bend to public policy. You have no choice but to start becoming a true charitable purpose. But then again, as I explained, you could simply unincorporate and kill Jehovah and all that money is yours.
Well, the thing is as NGOs, and we know that they have been filing grievances as an NGO against some of the persecution that they are enduring, like Russia and some of these other countries. So, if they are using the United Nations and some of these other branches of them to file these grievances, then, we should be filing grievances with the UN and these same, branches of this UN for our grievances because of, they have denied our human rights. They have denied us our family. And, just the label apostates and the shunning policy, the child abuse. The UN is supposed to be helping children, but yet they allow Watchtower to, be child abusers and to not protect the children.
But even more closer to home, why can't we ask some of your local true charitable organizations, ask them to file a grievance with the state attorney generals against the local kingdom halls for not donating to their charitable drives? Ask them to start putting pressure on the state attorney generals and force the local kingdom halls in your state to start complying to the 501c3s. Because remember, your local kingdom hall is a separate 501c3. Remember that. We've already showed that with what Russell...
Pretty much all of them are, unless they're under a trustee.
A trustee, right. And then the other thing that I was going to suggest too is start filing grievances that since 1984, not one Jehovah's Witness has ever received the employee statement showing how much taxes, Social Security taxes, were taken out, because Watchtower should have been paying a wage. And this is why I think we can kill Watchtower if we go after that 501c3. Because if they incorporate, then they kill their own God. They kill Jehovah. And then that'll make, in my opinion, I think it'll make every Jehovah Witness take a double take on, hey, what the hell just happened? What do you mean? What do you mean we can't call ourselves Jehovah's Witnesses because the name Jehovah's Witnesses legally belongs to the state?
See, and if JW.org is a separate corporation, guess what? They won't be able to use that one either.
That's right. Unless this JW.org is eventually their escape route.
Yeah, not incorporated. Are we done?
We're done.
Okay. Now, there have been some rumors that we actually started our own church, which is not true.
It's not true. It's a lie.
Yeah, it is lies. We were classified as a nonprofit support group. Which is not a church. Yes. But even though we have read this book and done our research about the 5013Cs, Mike and I have decided... Well, first, let me read. This is our incorporation papers from the state of New Mexico. And I just want to read this paragraph here.
And when you do, I will again read the First Amendment.
Okay. Nonprofit Corporation Act, and they have, all of this, and that the state secretary of the state has duly signed these documents. It has been received and are found to conform to law. Accordingly, by virtue of the authority vested in it by law, the office of the Secretary of State issues the certificate of incorporation and attaches hereto a duplicate of the articles of incorporation.
And they right there tell you they have the authority.
They have the
over
control.
The 501c3. They have control.
Which means they have control over us and what we say and do as far as Mike and Kim Ministries. So after careful consideration...
Don't need it.
We are not a church. We're not even a support group for churches.
We don't need it. Simple as that.
And we don't want anyone to follow us.
Yep. The First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So if Mike and Kim Ministries, according to this First Amendment, never needed a 501c3 to begin with, because that would be prohibiting our free exercise thereof. The only way that we can take back our constitutional rights is to become very familiar with them and learn how the federal government has been working to take these rights away from us.
So we do not want anyone controlling us, and we don't want to control anyone. We don't want to tell anyone what to believe. We don't want to have any influence on anyone. All we do is do videos, whistleblowing about things that we have researched and things we've learned about Watchtower. And that's all we want to do, is just try to prevent others from getting enslaved to corporations.
But
you don't need any of them.
But I will make this statement loud and proud. When you want to give up the authority of this, then you will also give up the authority that was bestowed upon us as Americans.
So true. So true.
One will eventually trump the other. One of these will eventually trump the other if we don't learn to protect what's in here. Because this is what America was founded on.
Our rights.
Is what's in here, our God-given rights. We lose this, then we lose our rights.
Yep. So thank you so much for your patience and listening to all of this. And this has taken all day and actually several weeks of research. So Mike and I are going to take a few days of well-deserved rest.
Yes, I think we are. I might even have a drink or two.
Go sit on the deck and watch the hummingbirds.
Yes.
So thank you, everyone. And thank you so much for all your comments.
Yes, thank you for your support, your love.
Several of you have sent us messages through YouTube, and I went and wrote them down. I can read them, but when I click on to reply to message, it doesn't work.
I don't know. I don't have time to be looking at the comments. 'Cause I work full-time.
Messages. It's personal messages to YouTube. So I have written all of them down, and we'll be answering them in a separate email. We have gotten them. We have read them. We're not ignoring you. I just cannot answer them.
So if you really want to get a hold of us through watchtower.exposed.
And if it's a nail and coffin, do all capital letters in the subject, because I'm going to be honest, guys. I've got almost 300 emails in my inbox, and I want to answer each and every one of you, but I start where I left off and answer the older ones first. So, I appreciate your patience, and unfortunately there's just not enough of me to go around to everybody, of everybody needing everything from me. So, just know that we do love you and do care and appreciate everything you send us. It's just that, I'm a little overwhelmed right now and not able to keep up. So,
Watchtower, are you hearing that? Are you hearing how many people are leaving? It's become overwhelming, and I'm sure it's this way for a lot of us people doing YouTube videos.
Yeah, in fact, one of the messages through YouTube was a current active Jehovah's Witness that really enjoys our videos. So hi, sweetie, thank you so much.
I'm glad we could be of service.
I'm not going to mention your name because I don't want to out you, but thank you, and I'm glad you like our videos and find us humorous, and he cracks me up too.
I crack myself up sometimes.
Yes. So thank you so much, everybody.
Oh. Go ahead. Just before you close, we have to do a little bit about this. We still got one more thing we want to talk.
I was going to tell everybody I love them and sign off. So go do that.
Yes. When we started doing a little bit of background check on Peter Kershaw, we did find a couple of YouTube videos that he had done. I don't think he did them specifically for YouTube's. He did them in a church. They got filmed.
Like a lecture.
And in time, they've been uploaded to YouTube.
We're going to put the link to that down below in the description.
Yes.
So that you can watch it. And it pretty much covers everything that's in his book.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about his book is we've already had several people asking us where to find this. If you can find it, it is really, really expensive, because it's no longer available. And I'll let Mike tell you what happened to poor Peter Kershaw.
Well, we wanted to do a little bit of background check on Peter Kershaw, who he was and everything else. We came across the videos that were uploaded on YouTube. But that seemed to be about it, because he mysteriously has disappeared off the planet of the Earth. And I hope by God that
he's okay.
That same bullseye's not plastered on Mike and Kim's back either. That's all I can say. Which I'm sure it is.
Well, at least we have evidence now that if something does happen to us, you know who to go after.
Yes, exactly.
You tell the FBI who put the target on our back.
So anyhow, unfortunately, it seems like Peter Kershaw has disappeared off the face of the earth. And that being said, if he's passed away, may God rest his soul, and thank you. Thank you, Peter Kershaw, for what you have done regarding the 501c3 and how people, it's not just religion, but even the people involved in religion have been manipulated to have their voices silenced. So thank you, Peter Kershaw, so much for your efforts in producing such a informative little booklet that has such a huge impact on religion.
Yes, and I just want to mention that the beginning of his video, the guy introducing him, there's something wrong with the audio and you can't really hear him. But once Peter Kershaw gets up to the podium, it gets up to regular volume. So we hope you find it as informative. Like I said, it's been a long day, as that we have, and that can help you. And the biggest thing is, don't let anybody enslave you and take your freedom away from you anymore. You don't need anybody to tell you how to live your life and what to believe or anything like that anymore. You have your freedom.
You get your freedom. Exercise it.
Yeah, and especially religions of all kinds, you know, all cults. Don't let them enslave you again.
Yep.
So that's our mom and dad wisdom for today, and we love you all.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.